I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off right now, because if I don't say it out loud immediately, I think I might actually vomit again. For the last 6 months, I have been battling what doctors thought was a mysterious, aggressive autoimmune disease. My gums turned gray and bled if I so much as looked at them. I had recurring strep throat that wouldn't respond to antibiotics. I developed ulcers on my tongue the size of dimes. I lost 15 pounds because swallowing felt like chugging broken glass. I thought I was dying. I thought my body was shutting down. But I wasn't sick. I was being poisoned. Yesterday, I came home early and found my roommate, Chloe, a woman I have lived with for 2 years, a woman I considered a friend, a woman who was literally a pediatric nurse, on her hands and knees in our shared bathroom. She was scrubbing the underside of the toilet rim. She wasn't using a toilet brush. She was using my blue Oral-B toothbrush. When I screamed, she didn't jump. She didn't apologize. She just looked at me with this dead, calm expression and told me it was payback for the time I asked her to soak her lasagna pan. I moved out that hour. But before I get to the confrontation, before I tell you about the police report and the logbook I found on her laptop, you need to understand the hell she put me through. You need to understand that this wasn't just a prank. This was biological warfare. It started back in November. I remember the first time I felt off. It wasn't a gradual decline. It was like hitting a wall. I woke up on a Tuesday with a taste in my mouth that I can only describe as metallic and sewage-like. I brushed my teeth 3 times that morning, scrubbing until my gums stung, but the taste wouldn't leave. By noon, I had a fever of 102. I went to urgent care, and the doctor took one look at my throat and recoiled. "It looks like you've been gargling battery acid," he said. He prescribed a heavy round of amoxicillin and sent me home. That night, Chloe was a saint. That's the part that makes my blood run cold now. She made me soup. She went to the pharmacy to pick up my meds. She sat on the edge of my bed, checked my temperature with her professional nurse's kit, and stroked my hair. "You poor thing," she said, her voice dripping with sympathy. "You really need to be careful with your hygiene, OP. Viral loads are high this time of year." Hygiene. She was lecturing me on hygiene while she was actively feeding me fecal matter. The first round of antibiotics worked for about a week. But 10 days later, the symptoms came back, but worse. This time, it wasn't just my throat. It was my eyes. I woke up with both eyes glued shut, crusted over with thick yellow discharge. Pink eye, bilateral conjunctivitis. I went back to the doctor, a different one this time. She ran a swab culture on my throat and my eyes. 3 days later, I got a call while I was at work. "We have your results back," the doctor said. There was a weird hesitation in her voice. "We found significant colonies of E. coli in your throat and eyes, specifically a strain usually found in fecal matter." I remember freezing in my cubicle. Fecal matter? Like poop? "Yes," she said. "Look, I have to ask, do you engage in risky practices? Or is there any chance you are drinking contaminated water? Maybe from a well?" "No," I said, horrified. "I drink filtered water from the fridge. I live in the city." "It's very strange," she muttered. "Wash your hands, OP. Bleach your bathroom. This amount of bacteria shouldn't be in the upper respiratory tract." I went home and scrubbed the apartment top to bottom. I felt dirty. I felt ashamed. I told Chloe about the diagnosis, thinking she would help me figure it out. When I told her, she laughed. A short, sharp sound. "E. coli? God, Oki, do you not wash your hands after you wipe? That's disgusting." I spent the next hour defending my basic hygiene to her. I felt so small. She stood in the doorway of the bathroom, watching me scour the sink with bleach, shaking her head with this look of pity and disgust. "Make sure you scrub the faucet handles," she instructed me, pointing. "You don't want to reinfect yourself." I did exactly what she said. I scrubbed the handles. Then I brushed my teeth with my toothbrush, the toothbrush I now know she had likely used that very morning to clean the S-bend of the toilet, and went to bed. By January, I was a shell of a person. I had developed a condition called trench mouth, acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. It's something you usually see in World War I soldiers or people with severe malnutrition. My gum tissue was literally dying and sloughing off. My breath smelled so bad that people at work stopped talking to me face to face. I stopped dating. I stopped going out. I was constantly running a low-grade fever, my body fighting a war it couldn't win because I was reinfecting it every single morning and every single night. I started getting paranoid. I thought it was the water pipes. I bought expensive filters for every tap in the house. I stopped eating out. I threw away all my makeup. But the one thing I didn't throw away was my toothbrush, because Chloe had bought me a fancy electric toothbrush holder that sanitized the brush head with UV light. It was a Christmas gift. To help with your bacteria problem, she had said, smiling as she wrapped it. I thought it was such a thoughtful gift. I used it religiously. I'd brush my teeth with the poison brush, rinse it off, and put it in the UV sanitizer, thinking I was killing the germs. I didn't realize that UV light can't clean off microscopic particles of excrement if they are jammed deep into the bristles. Things reached a breaking point 2 weeks ago. I woke up coughing up blood. Not a little streak, but a mouthful. I was rushed to the ER. They did a scope of my throat. My esophagus was raw, lined with sores. The specialist, a frantic-looking guy named Dr. Aris, sat me down in a private room. He didn't look at his clipboard. He looked right at me. OP, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. I've been looking at your chart. 6 infections in 5 months, multiple strains of coliform bacteria, esophageal erosion. I don't know what's wrong with me, I sobbed. I think I have cancer or AIDS. Just tell me. You don't have cancer, he said firmly. Your blood work is clean regarding autoimmune markers. Your white cell count is just through the roof because you are fighting an infection. He leaned in closer. I am going to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest. Is anyone tampering with your food? I blinked. What? This isn't natural, Dr. Aris said. You are ingesting biohazards regularly, massive amounts. If you aren't doing it to yourself, someone is doing it to you. I live with a nurse, I stammered. She takes care of me. Dr. Aris's face went rigid. A nurse? Yes, Chloe. She's been helping me. Does she have access to your toiletries? I laughed nervously. I mean, we share a bathroom, but she's my friend. Dr. Aris didn't laugh. He handed me a new prescription for a heavy-duty antibiotic and looked me dead in the eye. Go home. Do not eat anything there. Do not drink anything there. And for the love of God, buy a new toothbrush and keep it in your car. I walked out of the hospital shaking. I wanted to believe he was crazy. I wanted to believe he was watching too many crime shows. Chloe was my friend. We watched The Bachelor together. We shared clothes. The idea that she was poisoning me was insane. But that night, the seed of doubt had been planted. I didn't go home immediately. I parked my car down the street from our apartment complex. I sat there for 2 hours, just watching the windows. I saw the bathroom light flick on. I remembered something, a small detail I had ignored for months. Every morning, my toothbrush was wet. I always assumed it was just not drying out from the night before, or maybe the humidity in the bathroom. But sometimes the handle felt slimy. I felt a wave of nausea roll over me. I looked at the time. It was 6 p.m. Chloe usually worked the night shift, but she was off tonight. I decided to test Dr. Aris's theory. I wasn't going to catch her poisoning my food. I was going to catch her in the bathroom. I walked to the house. I opened the front door silently. I had greased the hinges months ago because I didn't want to wake her up when I left for work. Ironic, right? The apartment was quiet. Then I heard it. Scrub. Scrub. Splash. It was coming from the bathroom. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I crept down the hallway. The bathroom door was cracked open just an inch. I pushed it open, and that's when my life fell apart. The sound of stiff bristles scraping against rough porcelain is distinct. It's a dry, scratching noise. Scritch, scritch, splash. My brain couldn't process the image in front of me at first. It was like looking at an optical illusion where you can't see the sailboat, just the static. I saw Chloe. I saw the toilet. I saw her hand. But the connection between the objects refused to snap into place. Chloe was hunched over the bowl. The water in the toilet wasn't clear. It was a murky, yellowish brown. She hadn't flushed before starting. Her sleeve was rolled up to her elbow. Her hand was submerged past the wrist, deep into the throat of the toilet, the trapway where the water sits stagnant. In her hand was my Oral-B Pro 1000, the blue one, the one I had used that morning. She was scrubbing the dark, calcified ring of grime that builds up deep inside the U-bend. She was putting her back into it. I watched as she pulled the brush out, dripping with brown water and bits of dissolving toilet paper, tapped it against the rim to dislodge a clump of something dark, and then plunged it back in. Scratch, scratch. My knees gave out. I didn't fall, but I stumbled, my shoulder hitting the doorframe with a loud thud. The scrubbing stopped. Chloe didn't jump. She didn't gasp. She didn't try to hide the toothbrush behind her back like a child caught with a cookie. She froze for a split second, then slowly, agonizingly slowly, turned her head to look at me. Her expression is burned into my retinas. It wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was annoyance. She looked like I had walked in on her while she was reading a book. "You're home early," she said. Her voice was calm, flat. I couldn't breathe. My throat, already raw and blistered from months of infection, seized up. "What?" I choked out. "What are you doing?" Chloe sighed, standing up. She held the dripping toothbrush in her right hand. A droplet of toilet water ran down the handle, over her fingers, and dripped onto the bath mat. "Cleaning?" she said simply. "With my toothbrush?" My voice rose to a shriek. "You're using my toothbrush!" She looked at the brush, then back at me, a small, cold smile playing on her lips. "Well, the toilet brush is too big to get under the rim properly. You know how I like things thorough." "I used that," I whispered, the reality crashing down on me like a landslide. "I used that this morning. I've been using that for months." I felt the phantom sensation of the bristles against my gums. I tasted the ghost of fecal matter. I thought about the ulcers, the bleeding, the E. coli, the doctors asking me if I drank sewage. "I know," Chloe said. She walked over to the sink. I took a stumbling step back, terrified she was going to touch me. But she didn't. She turned on the tap. She ran my toothbrush under the water for 2 seconds, just 2 seconds, gave it a quick shake, and placed it back into the UV sanitizer on the counter. The little blue light on the sanitizer flickered on, purifying. "Why?" I screamed. Tears were streaming down my face now. "Why would you do that? I've been so sick. I was coughing up blood." Chloe turned to face me, leaning her hip against the counter. She crossed her arms. "Remember the lasagna pan?" she asked. I stared at her. "What?" "November," she said. "The lasagna pan. You left a note on the fridge. 'Chloe, please soak your dishes. It's disgusting.'" I remembered. I had asked her politely to clean a pan that had been sitting on the stove for a week, growing mold. "You called me disgusting," Chloe said, her voice dropping an octave. "You acted like you were so much better than me, so much cleaner, high and mighty OP with her chore charts and her rules." She took a step toward me. "I wanted to see if you were really that clean," she whispered. "I wanted to see how clean you'd feel with shit in your mouth." "You're insane," I gasped. "You're actually a psychopath." "I'm a nurse," she corrected me, as if that explained everything. "I know exactly what the human body can handle. You weren't going to die. You just needed to be humbled." "Humbled?" I touched my throat. "I have permanent scarring in my esophagus." Chloe shrugged. "You have a sensitive constitution. Not my fault." The nonchalance broke me. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't an argument. To her, this was just cause and effect. I criticized her cleaning. She fed me waste. In her broken brain, the scales were balanced. I realized then that I wasn't safe. The look in her eyes was dead. Sharks have more empathy than what I saw in her face. I turned and ran to the kitchen. "Where are you going?" she called after me. Her voice was teasing now. "I haven't started dinner yet." I grabbed my car keys off the hook. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped them twice. I snatched my purse. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't grab clothes. I just needed to be on the other side of a locked door. "OP, don't be dramatic," she yelled from the hallway. I heard her footsteps coming toward the kitchen. I slammed the front door behind me and sprinted to my car. I fumbled with the lock, threw myself into the driver's seat, and locked the doors just as Chloe appeared on the porch. She wasn't chasing me. She was just standing there, framed by the doorway of the house I paid half the rent for. She gave me a little wave. I peeled out of the driveway, hitting the curb, tires screeching. I made it about 3 blocks before the nausea won. I pulled into the parking lot of a 7-Eleven, threw the door open, and vomited onto the pavement. I heaved until there was nothing left, and then I dry heaved until my ribs felt like they were cracking. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The bristles splaying out against the stained porcelain, the brown water dripping, the way she put it back in the holder. I sat there on the asphalt, wiping bile from my chin, and realized I couldn't just leave. I couldn't just stay at a hotel and move on. She had poisoned me. She had assaulted me. And I realized something else. The logbook. 3 months ago, Chloe had bragged about keeping a wellness journal on her laptop. She said she was tracking her macros and her sleep. But I remembered seeing a tab open once when she asked me to fix her Wi-Fi. It was an Excel spreadsheet. I hadn't looked closely then, but I remembered the headers. Date, method, symptom, response. I thought it was for her patients. Sitting in that 7-Eleven parking lot, shivering in the evening air, I realized it wasn't for her patients. It was for me. I was her lab rat. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call my mom. I didn't call my boyfriend. I dialed 911.
911, what is your emergency?
I want to report a poisoning, I said, my voice sounding like gravel. And I think she kept records. The police dispatch operator was confused at first. Ma'am, you're saying your roommate used your toothbrush? She sounded skeptical, like I was calling to complain about a roommate stealing yogurt. I have documented medical records, I screamed into the phone, losing my composure. I have 6 months of inexplicable bacterial infections. I just witnessed her scrubbing the toilet with it. This is bioassault. Please, just send someone. They sent a patrol car to the 7-Eleven. 2 officers, a younger guy named Officer Miller, and an older, sterner woman named Officer Diaz. I showed them my throat. I showed them the pictures on my phone from when my gums were black and necrotic. I showed them the discharge papers from the ER stating suspected ingestion of contaminated material. Officer Diaz's face hardened. Let's go get your things. We drove back to the apartment. The lights were off. My car was still in the driveway where I had left it, but Chloe's car was gone. She had bolted. Stay behind us, Officer Miller said, hand resting on his holster. We entered the apartment. It was silent. The air smelled of bleach. She had tried to clean up the scene. The bathroom door was open. My toothbrush was gone. The holder was gone. She had taken the evidence. She took it, I panicked. She took the brush. You won't believe me. We'll look for it, Diaz said. Check her room. We went into Chloe's bedroom. It was immaculate, like a hotel room, but her laptop was sitting on the desk, closed. I think she kept records, I told the officers. She has a wellness journal. She tracks things. Officer Diaz put on gloves. Is it password protected? Yes, but I know it, I said. It's the same as our Wi-Fi password. She's lazy with security. Diaz opened the laptop. I typed in the password. Clean Living 123. The desktop loaded. And there it was, right on the desktop. An Excel file simply named Project Hygiene. Officer Diaz clicked it open. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. We all stared at the screen. It wasn't just a log. It was a manifesto. It was a spreadsheet with hundreds of rows. Column A, date. Column B, source. Column C, application. Column D, observations. I read the entry for November 12th. Source, toilet rim, 3 days uncleaned. Application, toothbrush, 30 seconds. Observation, subject CL metallic taste. Fever spike to 101.4 within 12 hours. Success. I scrolled down. My stomach churned. December 4th. Source, cat litter box, feces particle. Application, pillowcase. Observation, pink eye developed in left eye. Subject crying. Applied ointment incorrectly. January 20th. Source,
Raw chicken juice. Application. Contact lens case. Observation. Subject CO burning. Removed lenses immediately. Disappointing result. Try soaking longer next time. Jesus Christ, Officer Miller whispered. He looked green. She put raw chicken in my contact case, I whispered, my knees giving out again. I sat heavily on the edge of Chloe's bed. I could have gone blind. This goes back 6 months, Diaz said, scrolling to the top. Look at the notes. There was a column for justification. 11:10, asked me to do dishes. 11:25, left wet towel on the floor. 12:02, ate my yogurt without asking. 01:15, existing. That last one broke me. Existing. There was no rhyme or reason for half of it. She was bored, she was angry, she was just seeing what would happen. It was sadism masked as scientific curiosity. This is enough, Diaz said, pulling a USB drive from her tactical vest. This is more than enough. This is premeditative assault with bodily fluids, poisoning, endangerment. She's going away for a long time.
As Diaz was copying the files, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. I took the toothbrush, you have no proof, stop being a drama queen and come home, I made spaghetti. I showed the phone to Officer Diaz. Don't reply, she said sharply. Miller, call it in. Put an APB out on her vehicle. We have probable cause. We spent the next 2 hours at the police station. I gave a statement, they photographed the inside of my mouth, they took blood samples for a toxicology screen, just in case she had moved on to chemicals. Around 2 a.m., I was sitting in the plastic chair of the waiting room, drinking lukewarm water from a vending machine, when I heard the commotion. They were bringing her in. Chloe was in handcuffs. She wasn't fighting, she wasn't screaming, she was wearing her scrubs, looking for all the world like a tired nurse coming off a shift. When she saw me, she didn't look angry. She looked disappointed, like I was a student who had failed a test. Really, OP? She called out as the officer guided her toward the booking desk. The police? For a prank? It wasn't a prank, I screamed, standing up. You poisoned me. You wrote it all down. She stopped walking. The officer tugged her arm, but she planted her feet. She looked at me with genuine confusion. I was helping you build your immunity, she said. You were always so sickly. I was trying to toughen you up. You should be thanking me. The officer shoved her forward. Keep moving. You're ungrateful, she yelled as they dragged her through the double doors. I took care of you. The heavy doors slammed shut, cutting off her voice. I sank back into the chair. Building my immunity. That was her narrative. In her mind, she wasn't a monster. She was a caregiver. I stayed in a hotel that night. I pushed the dresser in front of the door. I checked the bathroom. I bought a sealed toothbrush from the front desk and brushed my teeth for 20 minutes, spitting blood into the sink. But I couldn't get the feeling out. I thought it was over. She was in jail. I had the evidence. But the next morning, I got a call from the landlord. I heard about what happened, he said. The police called. I'm changing the locks. Thank you, I said. But OP, he hesitated. You need to come back to the apartment. There's something else you need to see. The police missed it because it was under the sink. What is it? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. I don't know how to describe it, he said. It looks like a shrine. I didn't want to go back there. The thought of stepping foot in that apartment made my skin crawl, but the landlord insisted. Officer Diaz met me there, just to be safe. Under the sink, the landlord said, pointing to the vanity cabinet in the bathroom. He looked pale. He was standing in the hallway, refusing to enter the room. Officer Diaz opened the cabinet doors. I expected cleaning supplies. I expected maybe a hidden stash of more journals. Instead, I saw a collection. Lined up in the back, behind the bottles of drain cleaner and bleach, were small glass baby food jars. Each one was labeled with a date and a description in Chloe's neat, bubbly handwriting. OP's saliva, 11:14. OP's vomit, 12:05. OP's tears, 01:20. There were dozens of them. She hadn't just been poisoning me. She had been collecting the trophies of my sickness. She had scraped up my vomit. She had saved the tissues I cried into. And in the center of the shrine, sitting on a little velvet cushion like a crown jewel, was a toothbrush. Not the blue one I caught her with. This was my old toothbrush,
The red one I threw away back in December because I thought it was contaminated. She had fished it out of the trash. This is... Officer Diaz trailed off, her professional veneer cracking. This is obsession. It wasn't just about building my immunity or teaching me a lesson about dishes. It was about ownership. She wanted to control my body. She wanted to dictate when I was sick, when I was well, and keep pieces of me as souvenirs of her power.
I ran out of the apartment and didn't stop until I was in the street. I never went back inside. I hired movers to pack my things, and I told them to throw away anything in the bathroom and kitchen. I didn't care about the cost. Burn it all. The trial was a nightmare, but a short one. The project hygiene spreadsheet was damning. Her lawyer tried to plead insanity, claiming she had Munchausen syndrome by proxy, but the judge wasn't buying it. The premeditation was too clear. The malice was too organized. Chloe was charged with multiple counts of aggravated assault, adulteration of food and drink, and reckless endangerment. Because she was a nurse, the medical board stripped her license immediately. She didn't look at me during the trial. She spent the whole time sketching on a notepad. When the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, she just rolled her eyes. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison. It feels like justice, on paper, but justice doesn't fix you. It's been 6 months since I moved out. I live alone now. I live in a building with a concierge, security cameras, and triple locked doors. My physical health has mostly recovered, though I have permanent scarring on my gums and esophagus. My dentist says I'll be prone to gum disease for the rest of my life. I had to get 2 root canals because the acid from the constant vomiting destroyed my enamel. But the mental damage? That's the part they don't tell you about. I have OCD now. I can't help it. I wash my hands until they bleed. I can't eat food that I haven't prepared myself. If I go to a restaurant, I watch the kitchen like a hawk, and even then, I usually panic halfway through the meal and leave. And the toothbrushing.
I own 5 toothbrushes. They are locked in a biometric safe in my bedroom. I don't leave them in the bathroom. I brush my teeth in the kitchen, using bottled water. I boil the brush head before and after every use. Sometimes, late at night, I wake up tasting metal. I know it's a phantom taste. I know my mouth is clean. But the memory is so strong, it feels like there's a film of grime coating my tongue. I visited Chloe once, about a month ago. I don't know why. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I wanted to see her in a cage. She sat behind the glass, wearing a beige jumpsuit. She looked healthy, rested even. "Why did you come?" she asked. "I just wanted to know if you were sorry," I said. She smiled, that same tight plastic smile she gave me when she promised to do the dishes. "I read that spreadsheet, OP," she said softly. "You know, your immune markers were actually improving by February. If you had just let me finish the protocol, you would have been invincible." I hung up the phone and walked out. She isn't sorry. She thinks she's a scientist who was interrupted before her breakthrough.
So, if you have a roommate and you keep getting sick, if the doctors can't figure it out, if your water tastes a little funny, check your toothbrush, check the smell in the bathroom, and for the love of God, don't ask them to do the dishes.